through enduring hardships. The tears of pain I shed today will be the tears of joy I shed tomorrow. The brave never fall. We rise and maintain balance through freedom and connection. I'm Coach mjdtiger, life coach and mentor. Helping others find their passion, peace, and purpose in life brings me my passion, peace, and purpose in life. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Welcome to Vibes. We have to admit when we're wrong, not just celebrate when we're right. This is a very simple, tried and true concept that is basic and is something that we can do without any thought. It doesn't take any discipline to remove ego from a conversation, to remove pride from a conversation. It doesn't take all the intelligence in the world, all the emotion to be the best at everything, to be right, and vice versa. What it means to be right just means you have knowledge you can share, knowledge that will help others grow. Really, being right is just about experience. It's not about being right. It's about sharing your experience. And oftentimes, when we're wrong, that's when we learn the most. That's when we grow the most. That's when we realize, hey, we're not perfect. There is room for improvement. There is time to change and grow in the right direction. And there we go, the right direction. If we're going to focus on any right, that's the right we need to be focused on. The path, the right direction. It's not so much what we've done. Is that perfect? Is that right? Who cares? What matters is when we're wrong, those are opportunities for us to take our ego and deflate it and replace it with gratefulness. Grateful that we were wrong in the first place, because now we do have the opportunity to grow. If you're right about everything, how can you grow? You can only grow when there's room to add things in, when there's room to make things better. And you can only do that if you're not focused on everything that you have and the perfection of it, but looking at what you don't have and the imperfections of what's there. And what's there can be improved upon. Every single area, mind, body, heart, and soul, can be improved upon. How are you feeling? How are you feeling mentally, within your mind? How are you feeling physically, within your body? How are you feeling emotionally, within your heart? How are you feeling spiritually, within your soul? These are things I ask myself daily, morning, noon, and night, before I head to sleep for peaceful and powerful dreamland. And I ask myself this because it is a daily check-in that will keep me balanced and keep me focused on what I need to work on. So I ask you in this moment, take a moment of silence and ask yourself, how are you feeling? To be brave is to face fear. The end is not near. Enduring every challenge, seeing clearly through fallen tears, pure determination. We're still here through rejuvenation. Being merely content is not elevation. Stagnation doesn't lead to validation. Contemplation of our inner conversations, our stories set on repeat, lost in ruminations. That's what we take from them. That gives meaning to dreams. Life is stranger than fiction. It is never what it seems. Life can be like a dream. But unlike our dreams, we can truly take control of the narrative. Truly turn things from that weird, unrecognizable state into something that is familiar and balanced and is true to what and who we are. It leads to purpose, it leads to our passion, but we have to move up in life. We have to keep ascending. Can't stand still. It's all about moving forward. Vibes, Episode 6, 8 Minutes or 8 Years. I have talked about time a whole lot in previous podcasts and its relevance and how important it is to each and every one of us on so many different levels. But on this particular podcast, we're going to dive a little deeper into those crossroads moments, those little brief moments, and those moments that lead to prolonged moments that last for years and how they impact us. But before we do that, we're going to jump into story 6 of the continued story we've been doing since episode 2 of the Encouragement for You Today podcast, following a storyline of Will and Autumn. This is a story I created for myself. And again, if you haven't heard the previous entries, go back to episode 2 of Encouragement for You Today podcast, and it's just little short segments that I add in here to give reference. And at the end of episode 12 of this podcast series, I'll release the entire story in its own single video. Story 6. Will and Autumn. An unlikely meeting by chance at the right moment in both their lives that had led to an even more fairy tale childhood, bond, friendship, and ultimately marriage. A decade had passed since they first met, and they were able to experience all the life-changing highs and lows during that time together. Almost as if they were one, twin flames and soulmates. The couple stood, hands locked, as they stood on the riverbank, watching as the water flowed peacefully before them, the rocks warm underneath their bare feet, the wind subtle and humid. Summer was their time of year for adventure. Long hikes, backpacking, camping, outdoors in nature. They had met for the first time outdoors. It was where they spent most of their time. Even if it was a couple hours a day sitting outside on the front porch watching the sunset, it was essential to their bonding time. Time has little meaning when true peace is present. Denying themselves the pleasure of exploring not just the outdoors, but their bond as well, meant that the exploring never ended. It was daily, hourly. Whether it was for the next 8 minutes or the next 8 years, that sense of wonder in each other and all that was around them at any given moment was never ending. That relationship, together and individually, depended on it to thrive. The water, the rocks, the wind, the sun, all in harmony. Autumn and Will were aligned with that harmony within themselves, giving to the other that same balance nature so beautifully enjoyed. However, time, unlike the harmonic balance of nature, for them would eventually come to a literal dead end. And that was what empowered their relationship further. The inevitability of closure. No matter the bond, the strength of harmony, the power of alignment, it was precious time ticking away, moment by moment. With no guarantees on who came into their lives and who left it, being grateful was a priority. There was no room nor time for complacency. selfishness, or loathing. Time was a constant reminder that who you love most could be lost at any moment. Thinking deeply of his mother, who abandoned him and his father to pursue her own happiness and purpose without them, Will felt at peace. He had come to terms that his mother's decision to move on without them all those years ago was indeed just that, her choice. Grateful he still had his father, Will, after years of attempting to understand why she chose to leave, now understood as he took in his surroundings. His mother left because any other way would have changed his life, and he may not be standing upon the bank with his beloved Autumn. As if reading his thoughts, Autumn, hands locked with Will's, spoke soothingly over the sounds of the river and birds' songs carried by the wind. "We're here for a reason," she said with a reassuring smile. "It was all meant to happen exactly how it did in both our lives." Will smiled. She was right, and he was grateful. Time had little meaning at that moment. Again, you can listen to the entire story once it's completed. After episode 12, I'll have the entire story up in its own video. So if you just heard that segment and you don't want to go back, it's completely fine. Let's get into the monologue. And this one is an interesting one because this is something I think about a lot. And I chose to use 8 minutes and 8 years because 8 is just my favorite number. If you flip it sideways, it's the infinity sign. And it shows you that life can be infinite if you look at it a certain way. But our point of view in reality has little meaning. Just like we said in the story, time has little meaning when there's peace involved. Time seems to slow down when things are going right. And vice versa, it seems like time slows down when things are going wrong. And that's what's so funny about life, is that it's really how we perceive it and how we react and move through times of peace and times of chaos. Now, we have a little bit of control over a lot of things, and we have a lot of control over a little bit of things. It's just always that balance. Think about your next decision. Your next decision could simultaneously affect in a positive way you. In the next 8 minutes, something good could come out of a decision you made. And in that 8 minutes, and again, I'm using 8 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 1 minute. It could be 35 minutes. I'm just saying 8 because it's my favorite number. The next 8 minutes, you could have a positive outcome that just seems like the most correct, decisive thing you ever come to terms with for yourself in that moment. But when you look back at that moment 8 years from now, you get to say that decision long term really affected me negatively for 8 years, where in that little small 8 minutes it seemed perfect. This is why decision making is so damn important. Is it a full body yes from your mind, body, heart, and soul with that decision? And can you anticipate and kind of forward think your way through that decision, knowing that, yes, in the short term, there are going to be consequences positively and or negatively, and long-term consequences positively and or negatively. But too often, way too often, me being one of those people, we don't think about the short term the long term. What we're thinking of is, what are we getting in this moment? And that moment is right now. That's more the next 8 seconds. But those seconds turn into minutes, and those minutes turn into days, weeks, months, years, decades. So, yes, we are making the decision in the moment, but long term, we are making a decision that is very heavy when you think about it. Because every decision you make is something that is affecting you long term and short term simultaneously. If you eat a bad meal, you can say, I'm going to run it off. It affected you short term, but it still would have been better if you hadn't had the bad meal long term, because you're adding on more good meals than bad. So yes, maybe you can burn off that meal. Maybe that cheat meal is great. Trust me, I have a cheat meal every single week. But I also make sure that I'm burning as much as I can every single week. I burn almost 3 to 5 times more than I eat in a day. And I do it on purpose. But that's just an example. There are countless other examples of that same type of thing where, yes, on a short term, and maybe you can correct it even within the next 8 minutes if it's a bad decision. But there are still long-term ramifications of it because it's about discipline, consistency, rituals, habits. If you do something that you can reward yourself with and also fix or correct in a short amount of time, you are more prone to do that thing more often than not. Over time, it adds up to be discipline. You're making a ritual, a disciplined ritual out of doing things that aren't the greatest things for you, but since you correct it and it feels good in a positive way to correct that thing, you're forgetting that this is long term. And if you do that for 8 years, if you look back at that one thing, was it really a positive thing? Even though you were fixing these small little things along the way. Wouldn't it be easier to just not do that thing that you need the course correct on and only align yourself with things that don't need those little small corrections every 8 minutes, every 8 days, every 8 weeks? What if the things that we did every single day added up to be positive no matter what, and the only thing that we're correcting is how to do them better? Those are things that long term, those 8 years in the future, once added up day by day, those are positive rituals. Those are positive things that not only make you better, but once they start to define you, it's very hard to deviate from that. And that is the important part. So really the 8 minutes or the 8 years, the whole concept of it for me is that what are you going to get in the short term from the next decision? And simultaneously, how's it going to affect you long term? If there's any negative things in there. Now, again, we're talking about truly negative things and truly positive things. We're not talking about, again, I use the food example because that's a small, insignificant thing in the grand scheme of 8 years, because you have plenty of time to correct that meal. That was just something to get you to think that if you did that, eat that small meal that wasn't so great for you every single day in a long-term sense, yes, it could have negative effects on you. But we're talking about decision making as far as who you are as an individual. A true decision that makes you affect the people, places, and things around you in a positive, neutral, or negative way. And I always a neutral way is that's the way where it's kind of like that's that discipline area where you're not really affecting anything because you're on the straight and narrow. You're moving in purpose and passion. It doesn't really matter the tilt and swing of good and bad because you're staying right where you need to be. And that gray area, right in the middle, is where I always like to look at, because you're going to shift back and forth like a pendulum, back and forth. Where one area of your life is going to be a struggle, it seems like the other areas in your life always tend to be more positive and take little effort to maintain. And then in the next year, it's completely reversed. The things that you were maintaining seem to be issues now. And things that were issues now are suddenly things because you worked on them and focused on them. Now you got them good, but you just lacked on the other things. So it's always going to be that swing, that balance back and forth. And we're trying to just keep it in the middle. We don't want those RPMs to go into the red. We want to stay in the middle. And that is extremely difficult. And anybody who tells you otherwise, they are full of it. Because trying to maintain, especially when you have healthy rituals and habits, and you're trying to continue not only to get these rituals and habits going for you, but you also want to improve upon them, because that's what we do as human beings. We improve, we thrive, we want to make things that we have better. We want to add on, and not everybody wants to do that, and that's totally okay. But for those people, if you're listening to this, you probably want to add on to the things that are the best things in your life. You want to make the right decisions at those crossroads moments where you're going to make a decision and it's potentially life-changing, not only in the next 8 minutes, but the next 8 years. You want to fully understand why you're making that decision. You want to fully understand how that is going to impact not only you, but the people, places, and things that are around you. And let's start with the people, because those are the most important things. If what we do in the next 8 minutes are affecting other people negatively, are we making the right decisions? Because it's super simple, extra super simple, to just make decisions without thinking of the consequences. I tend to want to do this. When I make a decision, I immediately ask myself, is it serving me? Is it something that is a full body yes for my mind, body, heart, and soul? If it's not a full body yes, I don't do it. It's just that simple. It can be a subtle no, and maybe I can think about it a little longer. But if any no's pop up in there, if my mind drifts and says, I don't know, nope, I'm done. I don't make that decision because I know for a fact that it's a decision that me, myself, am not aligned with. Therefore, whatever decision I'm making, I'm already putting out negative energy. Anyone around me is going to feel the impact of that because I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling this decision I'm making 100%. Now you say, Coach Tiger, what about a leap of faith? What about taking risks and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable with your decision making? Yeah, you can do those things. They come from trusting yourself, though. You can't take a leap of faith if you don't trust yourself. You cannot take a risk if you do not trust yourself. The true risks and the failed leap of faith come with not trusting yourself, not knowing who you are, not knowing your boundaries, your principles, your morals, not having self-respect and self-love for yourself, not respecting yourself enough to actually put yourself in a position where it even matters if it's a leap of faith or a risk. Things have to matter for things to be a risk, a leap of faith. The people, places, and things around you, there has to be something for you to lose. And otherwise, it's not a leap of faith. It's not a risk. It's just you taking a chance. And by the way, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think some of the healthiest ways to grow is when you don't have much to lose and you try something new. You take a risk on something that's new. That's completely different. Because even with that risk and that leap of faith, if it's in a positive mindset, first and foremost, it's coming from peace within yourself. You're at ease. Of course, try new things. Grow, explore, ascend, augment who you are. There is nothing more crucial in life than when you feel like you should be doing more and you're not doing anything about it. So by all means, if you feel what you're doing is positive, what you're feeling, it could be a relationship, a new job, you want to move, you want to buy something expensive. It's all wrapped up in, if it's positive, you start with that. Is it positive? That decision right there is already set with the arrow in the right direction. Now you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Like, through your mind, body, heart, and soul, is this something that you're prepared to take on as a decision that you're going to make that's going to affect you positively or negatively, again, or neutral? But most of the time, we're not making decisions based on neutrality. If it's neutrality, then we're already there. There's no decision to make. So is it positive or is it negative? If it's positive, then by all means, go ahead and start the process of making the decision. But every decision made on impulse, in my opinion, is negative. Being impulsive is not taking a risk. That's not a leap of faith, not in the Brave Never Fall book, in my opinion. Being impulsive means you have no self-control. And that is also, when we're talking about decision making, that can also mean our interactions and how we communicate, not only with ourselves, because how we talk to ourselves can be very impulsive as well. There's all types of behavioral issues and cognitive behavioral issues and side effects and things that we all deal with that come from impulsive thoughts, feelings, and actions. And if those things aren't checked, everything that we're talking about in this podcast is rendered mute, because there is absolutely no way you can make a decision if it's based on impulse and wanting a reaction right now in the moment and wanting it because impulsive thoughts and reactions tend to lead to, if it's not what I want, then it's bad. And if I don't have it now, if I don't have the answer now, I don't have this person, place, or thing right now, somehow I am not doing well. that's and I got to do something to fix it. And that's not empowering. That's not encouraging. There's nothing about that kind of impulsive way of moving through a decision that's going to serve you or aid you in any particular way. Regret, remorse, those are the things that follow impulsive thoughts and decisions. So we need time to think. And that time does not have to be forever. Again, I always say I give myself 8 minutes. That's just something I do. When I make a decision, I do not make any decision in my life impulsively within a moment or a second. Now, again, reacting to something, if somebody comes at you with something, you have to react in real time. Again, you're not initiating this. We're talking about what we initiate. We're not talking about reacting. Decisions based on reactions are completely different. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're talking about initiating. We're in control. We get to make the decision. And if we have the time to do that, then we have the time to do that. So we have no excuse for making a decision that is going to make us in the next 8 minutes feel regretful, remorseful, feel like we need to be forgiven. Those are things that lead to negative progression in life. We don't want that. That's that pendulum going to the wrong side. We want to stay right where we are. Neutrality, again, neutral. And try to focus on positive. We can't always expect positive to happen because negative is always going to be there. And it's going to always counteract and pull and force us to balance out. And that's just the way it works. And name me a human that hasn't gone through that, and name me a human that has figured out perfect balance. Even the ones who have, and again, I am a person who follows Tao. Buddhism, we are as close to some, the whole concept of balance in life is what I like about Tao. And even the most prolific Taoists out there, monks and Buddhists out there, would tell you they're not even close, not even remotely close to enlightenment and balance. And that is the journey, is the continuous journey of this thing, which is why, again, that's that long-term aspect of short-term decision making and how it impacts us. Now, in terms of reactions, this is when a lot of us get ourselves in trouble. We cannot make decisions based on reactions just like we would if we had time to plan things out. That's the disruption in there. That's that sense of lack of control that we that we experience when there's time for us to react and we have to make a decision and we don't have any time to detach and think. That is why it's so important to be disciplined about who you are, because the decisions we have to make throughout the day, most of it is based on reactions. If we're driving a car, almost everything we're doing is based on reacting to other drivers, the lights, to things that can impact our car, things that are impeding our vision. Everything is based on a reaction. That's just driving the car. That's one element of a day. So we can go through the whole day and understand layer by layer all the things that we're reacting to each and every day, but we don't think anything about it because we're in that neutrality. We know exactly how we react to most things. It's only those biggest and most jolting of things that come our way, the unexpected things that happen, that makes us feel like we're out of control. We can't make the proper decision because we didn't have time to properly ponder and think about what we're reacting to. And that can be very unsettling. That can cause anxiety. The thought of that happening each day, which it happens every day, which is why anxiety is such a hard thing for people, because we know at some point in the day something's going to happen that we can't control, and we're going to have to react to it and hopefully make the right decision. But just think, if we're taking time each and every day to make sure that we have our core principles in place, that we're strong enough mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually to take on whatever comes our way. Again, I say this every podcast. Expect the unexpected, but don't be surprised by it. If we're able to do that each and every day, that comes from a place of confidence within ourselves that, yes, when we are confronting these decisions that we are reacting to, it doesn't feel like a risk or a leap of faith to make a decision with them. When those crossroads moments happen where we know these moments are going to change our life and the people around us forever based on the decision we're making, we don't feel overwhelmed with feelings of inadequacy, or feeling like we didn't do enough prior to this decision to make it feel like it's not a leap of faith or risk, that it's a decision we're making because we're confident that this decision is going to make us better. It's going to help us grow. It's going to move us in a direction where we are not only confident in that moment, but we're going to be confident in the next 8 minutes. It's going to be confident in the next week, day, months. Those are the decisions that hold the most weight. When we make the decision and we stick to it and we know this is best for me, it's making me better, truly making me better. I can feel a full body yes, mind, body, heart, and soul completely throughout my body. I feel this is the right decision, and it doesn't feel like a leap of faith or a risk because I know no matter what happens with this decision that I'm making, I put my most positive foot forward. I am going to not regret this decision. I'm not going to feel regretful. I'm not going to feel like I need to be forgiven for it or apologize for it. I'm going to move forward with this decision. And that's just based on the reaction. That's a reaction decision. And you can feel all of those things easily when we've taken the time with the decisions we make when we initiate our decisions. When we can master that within ourselves, when we know whatever decision we make has core principles that we can fall back on, that we say, no matter what happens, I know it's going to be okay because I am basing it off of these things. I didn't always have these concepts down. These are concepts I've developed for myself that actually work. And they take time, definitely takes discipline, but it also takes a level of bravery to make sure you understand where your weaknesses are, to even understand what you need to work on in the first place. Self-awareness. What am I doing wrong? How can I improve? How can I get better? How can I apologize for things when I do them wrong? Am I able to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, to someone when I make a bad decision? When somebody has been wronged by me, am I able to say, I was wrong? When I'm right, can I swallow my pride and say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. Let's talk some more about this and see where we can learn from each other. Instead of shoving down their throat, I told you so. These are all things each and every day that will make you better when you realize every decision you make is not something to be taken lightly, but at the same time doesn't have to have the weight of the world upon your shoulders. The next 8 minutes or the next 8 years, what is the difference? Time slows down for you when you choose it to slow down for you. When you take the time to look at what decision you're making, is it correct for you? Does it feel right for you? Once we get past that, then we can start thinking about what it feels right for other people. We can't put other people in front of our decisions. They have their own decisions to make, right or wrong, good or bad. It's their decisions to make. We have ours to make. What does the ground underneath our feet look like? Is it stable or is it broken? If it's broken, you need to move away from that to some solid ground so you can start making some solid decisions. Look up at the sky. Is it dark or is it light? Is it storming or do you have good weather? If it's storming over your head, you need to go find some shelter and get some good weather. It's the same with decision making. It's either a good decision or it's a bad decision. Only you would know that. But the easiest way to know if it's a good decision or a bad decision how it's going to affect you in the next 8 minutes or the next 8 years is for you to actually understand yourself. The work has to be put in prior to that decision. Regardless if we're initiating that decision or that choice, or we're reacting with a decision or a choice. The better we know ourselves before those two things even occur, the better positive pendulum swing we're going to get to the positive areas. The negative areas, they're going to be right behind you in the shadows, waiting for you to doubt yourself, to not trust yourself, for you to have regret and remorse, for you to feel as if every decision you make is a leap of faith and a risk because you're reacting. We want leaps of faith in life. We want to grow. We want risks in life. We want to be vulnerable and grow and ascend through trust of ourselves, through self-love of ourselves. Mind, body, heart, and soul, we make the right decisions because we trust ourselves. And regardless if it's the next 8 minutes or the next 8 years, if you trust yourself, those leaps of faith and those risks in life are going to reap beautiful rewards. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. We rise and maintain balance.